The Justice Beat is dedicated to the 1 in 3 Americans touched by incarceration. Justice Beat is where we discuss all things justice.
Good afternoon, St. Louis. The Justice Beat Talk Show is in the house with Mr. Reverend McCowan as my co-host, and I'm JB. Thank you for joining us. All right, Reverend.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. And this is a wonderful inaugural episode of the show. And I want to thank you so much, Elaine, for inviting me to share with our listening audience some of the things that we need to talk about that's very important to at least one in every 3 American and their families. The state of being incarcerated in the Missouri prisons and jails. So thanks for having me, and happy Martin Luther King Day to you and your listening audience.
And first, I want to say I would be remiss not to do this, that this show is dedicated to 2 people. My former mentor, from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the late Reverend E. Randall T. Osborne, and also in memory of my grandmother who just passed in October, Ethel R. Davison. We are elevating.
Amen.
We are elevating.
Amen.
So let's talk a little bit about why we decided to do the show first. You know, it's a whole lot happening here in St. Louis.
A lot.
Okay.
We're in the spotlight.
Exactly.
We're in the national spotlight, and I think St. Louis constantly is in the national spotlight because of its backwards behavior and this historic racism that occurs here like perhaps no place else. And then perhaps we get a chance to look at some other parts of the country, but St. Louis is just, and Missouri is just kind of strange like that.
Right. You know, and of course, as most people know, St. Louis was the last state to kind of say, hey, we're not going to have slavery.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of things here seem to be extremely antiquated. It takes them a very, very long time to make progressive moves in areas that are really needed. And especially in my work day to day, where I see so many complaints coming from the jails and prisons.
That's from the ACLU.
Absolutely. And it's 60% of the complaints from the ACLU are from jails and prisons.
Wow.
And I want to make this disclaimer. This show is not connected to the ACLU, but I can't help but make the connection in terms of why this show is necessary.
Sure.
We see a lot of individuals that come to us that want help. They don't know how to advocate on behalf of their loved ones. And it became paramount to me that we got to fill the gap somehow.
Right.
How do we motivate, encourage, inform family members and friends on how to really confidently and boldly walk into these jails and prisons and command some level of accountability.
Right. And basic dignity and respect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's time out for people feeling like their hands are tied
Right.
or they don't know what to do. We're here to kind of
Right.
fill that gap and say, look, this is what you need to do and this is how you do it.
I am extremely proud to be here. I'm extremely glad to have the opportunity to share with our listening audience on some things that they can simply do to make it better for their loved ones that are in prisons and jails in Missouri. And I love this this program, this idea we came up with, in particular you came up with, because at NAACP we have the same issue. We have NAACP branches from Charleston, Missouri,
Right.
all the way to Kansas City. We have branches inside the prisons. And a lot of it, I served for over a decade as the NAACP branch prison committee chair.
Right.
And now I'm on the committee, but I pretty much deal with the eastern prisons in Missouri and the southeast prisons in Missouri. And it's the same thing. You have people who claim their innocence in prison.
Right.
That family members don't know how to get their loved ones out there and share with everybody that this is still an innocent person that's in prison. Fortunately for us, inside the NAACP branches, inside the prisons, we have what's called a legal redress committee. And inside their prison, our legal redress committee is actually able to meet with folks and look at their cases. And I would tell you, you have what's called a jailhouse lawyer.
Right.
And these guys, ladies, are fabulous.
Right. They know as much as the lawyers on the street.
They do. They file their own cases, their own
Exactly.
petitions, all of that kind of stuff. So we're proud to be able to support folks. But again, you can't just dump that on the ACLU. And I know it's not about the ACLU and it's not necessarily about the NAACP, but you just can't, as a family, say, here's our case and here is what we want the ACLU to do about it. Here's what I want the NAACP to do about it. You've got a thought in your mind and say, that's what you all do.
Right.
That's not, we have to be in partnership with family members, loved ones, and the community
Exactly.
in order to make to turn the system around, to get your person, family member out of prison. We need family support. We need community support to do that.
Right,
and
we do.
And so we could talk a little bit about, some of the things that families can do to help their inmates out, their family members out.
Right. One of the things you want to make sure that you do is you continue to keep track of what's happening on the inside. Get on their visitation list. Make sure you know when visitation is. If you have a loved one that may have medical concerns, you need to make sure you are getting copies of medical records, which you can do with the authorization of the person that's incarcerated. One of the complaints that I've heard is that after a while, typically maybe within that first year of incarceration, family members tend to really be around.
Yeah.
As the time goes on, year 2, 3, 4, and 5, that support wanes. And so basically you have an individual that is there without family support or support from the community. They really need somebody on the outside to be advocating for their best interests.
Absolutely.
So the first thing we would want to encourage is that in as much as you can, family members try to stay connected. We understand the stress and the strain that it brings on family members, especially the traveling to and from a jail or a prison, depending on where they're located. The phone calls that are costly, that's another way to stay connected, which they're very costly to do. But it's paramount if you want to make sure that the individual is okay.
Correct.
Another thing family members can do is educate themselves about the operations and the administrations of jails and prisons. And Reverend McCowan and I will be going over some of those things in the months to come about what that looks like, how you can be a part of that monitoring piece of it, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, so that you don't bring any harm to your loved one as well. Because number one, for jail or prison, their main concern is safety and security.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Right.
Then from a family member's perspective, they're saying, look, but we don't know if our loved one is safe and secure.
Correct.
So how do we marry the two so that both objectives are met? Understanding the responsibilities of the jail and prison, but also understanding the rights of the inmates. Right.
Understanding those rights and being able to enforce those rights, or giving leverage to those rights. Because the only rights you really have in America, let alone in prison, are those that you're willing to fight for.
Exactly.
And that you're willing to make sure that folks understand that you know about, and that you have other folks that are allied with you to make sure those rights aren't violated.
Right.
An overall issue, and I like the way you put that, Elaine, that you need to stay in contact with your loved ones, because the more the prison knows that they have family members on the outside that'll call, harass them. Forgive me, you all, I'm a preacher, but raise hell.
Right.
The more you're able to do that, the more likely they're not going to mess with your loved one, because it's a problem.
Exactly.
They're going to go the route of the least resistance. Everybody that in prison, from the wardens on down to the folk that are in the cook, in the security officers, if you will, the COs, all of them not going to heaven. And you're going to get some preaching out of me every now and then.
I hear you.
Everybody ain't going to heaven. And everybody ain't going to act right. And so sometimes, you just got to make people act right, not because it's the right thing to do for them, but you need to get them to act right because there's a consequence associated with them not acting right.
Right.
A lot of family members don't know that a phone call, if you call the NAACP office and I give you some suggestions, I say call your state senator.
Right.
Call your state representative. If I tell you to call these folks and they don't call you back and look into what's going on and advocate on behalf of your loved one in prison, then you need to call the NAACP back. That way we'll send a letter to them asking them, why aren't you responding to this particular person's concern about their loved one in prison?
Right.
Because that's who controls the budget of the prisons. And everybody, just because a person is a Republican does not mean that they're not concerned about an individual that's inside their state prison, because that's also on their head if something happens to somebody.
Right.
And so people just need to really get more involved and realize that there are other organizations, other elected officials that can do something about their loved one in prison, but they're the main ones that have to be involved.
Let's go back a little bit to something you mentioned before about your redress committee.
Legal redress committee.
Can you give us some more information about that and how that works?
Yeah. So
I
depending
think it
upon,
would be beneficial to the family members. Yeah.
I would first of all, if your family member is in a state prison of Missouri, if they're in Cameron, if they're in Potosi, if they're in Licking, if they're in Charleston, if they're in Bonne Terre, wherever we have our prison branches. And if we don't have a prison branch there, you need to advocate for a prison branch there. That's first of all. The second thing is tell them to join the NAACP.
That's right. Join the NAACP.
Inside the prison.
Right.
Yeah, that strengthens that what's called a prison organization, the inmate organization. And so offender organization, I'm sorry, that's the legal word for offender organization.
Right.
So join that. Then approximately at least once a month, you get together with the entire group. Depending upon how the prison operates, you're able to get along with the entire group and talk about different cases that you all want to highlight or work on. With what Kim is doing now with the conviction integrity.
Kim Gardner.
Kim Gardner, our circuit attorney for the city of St. Louis.
Right.
What she's doing with the conviction integrity, I've actually asked the inmates at our prisons to identify cases that they know where a person is actually innocent.
Great. I was going to ask you, how do those cases come to your attention?
Right. Any number of ways. An individual happen to get our number from somebody else that's in NAACP. Mostly those folks are usually NAACP members, but a lot of times we get some folks who are not. They get our phone number, they write us. Sometimes they mail us their entire case package, and I'm telling you, you need
books.
A book. Yeah, you need to make sure that they give us kind of a summary of what's in that package, because there's no way I get them other cases by trying to read that entire package.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, so those cases come to us in the mail. Family member call us on the phone, and we begin to look at their cases. I've been known to go to different prisons and have a meeting with folks, or we've been fortunate enough to at a particular time have somebody who's doing some pro bono work and just want to do something for us, and they go. But we don't have a staff of attorneys. So we have to beg around and ask around and try to get all the help we can.
Right. Okay. That's good. So the conviction, these are the conviction integrity units, correct?
The conviction integrity unit is by the circuit attorneys, of course, and our legal redress committee decides that, okay, this particular person, we all agree, inside this prison,
we need to look at this.
Now, because you got to understand now, people are in prison for a reason.
Right.
I don't mean to insult nobody.
Exactly.
But some folk in prison because they ain't cool.
Exactly.
And so, everybody, a lot of folks, you go ask them, did you do what they say you did? They'll tell you no.
Right.
But, folks who are dealing with justice and issues like that, they'll tell you, yeah, I did such and such.
Right.
I need to be here. But this is where I'm redeeming my life by sharing with these other folks. So I can't get out of here because I did what I did. So I'm going to be here rest of my life,
right?
Unless you all can change the laws, where I probably go before a parole board.
Right.
Other than that, I'm here the rest of my life. But I'm going to help this young man or this young lady get out of here because this person, guess what?
Right.
We looked at their case, Rev. McCowan, and this guy or this lady, they're innocent.
Right.
What can you do to help them? And then we start whining and crying and seeking and helping, trying to do what we can to do to get them out of there.
And those units are popping up across the country now, at least in some jurisdictions. I know Baltimore also has
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Which tells us that with these progressive
Gotcha.
DAs that we have,
Females. Yes, black females.
exactly. Especially, we just had 7 of them here in St. Louis at Harris Stowe this past Tuesday, the 14th, from Florida, California, Philadelphia, Baltimore.
They
are looking at these cases where these people really are probably innocent.
Yes.
And saying, look, we're going to bring some light, shed some light on this, and those conviction integrity units are very important to that process.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And I will share with you because if they're the prosecutors,
right?
And they're looking at them cases. Yeah, like you said, more than likely, I would give it 99.9% because these sisters know how to put you in jail if you're messing up. And I mean, I was at the rally at Harris Stowe University, and that was a very impressive group of prosecutors, black or white, male or female.
Right.
But these sisters stood head and shoulders above other prosecutors in that they are doing the right thing by our community, minority and poor communities, and they're taking a lot of pushback and a lot of hits. Kim has been threatened. A number of them mentioned
Have you heard the call that she received? Well, actually, it was Maryland. I think it was it Mosley that got the call, or was it Kim?
Marilyn Mosley got a call.
Right.
So I think Kim had mentioned something earlier about getting a phone call and getting threats.
And it was really, really egregious.
Right.
I mean, the content of the phone call made me think we had actually stepped back into the 50s.
Really? And there's people who've been on national news talking about Gardner.
Yes.
And calling her out her name. And these are other elected officials.
Right.
So I'm or appointees, if you will.
Right.
And my thing is that is unprofessional behavior. If I appointed you somewhere, and you going around the country or you going on national news and you calling people out of their names, a professional out of their names, I think that's something to get rid of you about. I mean, that should violate some type of policy in your organization or your state.
Right.
And says we should be able to fire you for that. So I think, this, I hope that going forward we'll use this as a bench to jump off of, go after some folks and say this is just wrong.
Right.
Yeah, highlight some names. Yeah.
So these issues all kind of morph into this one big issue that we're talking about around reforming the system.
Yeah.
I mean, they're needed. The conviction integrity units, the work that the NAACP is doing around the redress committees, ACLU, and then the family member piece. See, there's no organization here in St. Louis, one organization that is like an advocacy organization for jails and prisons where you can actually go in and you have some. I'm sorry.
Unlike you're saying that there are other states that have an independent organization, that you can go to, and that's what their job is.
That's what their job is.
And everybody knows that that's their job.
That's exactly
to oversee the prisons. Yeah,
that's correct.
We're left with the FBI, and your behavior has to be so egregious that somebody has to die before the FBI get involved. Don't come knocking on my door, FBI, but I'm just telling you the truth.
Exactly.
Before they actually do something about what's going on in prisons. They have, though. They've arrested people in the past. Yeah, but we don't have that.
Right. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and on the backside, we'll continue our conversations about why the Justice Beat Talk Show is very important, the work that Reverend McCowan and I continue to do, and how we can really encourage family members and friends and our listening audience to really, really take a look at what's happening in St. Louis and the need for reform in the jails and prisons and other areas. Excellent. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All right.